you ever woken up the next day after neurosurgery for a tumor in your brain and not remembered? I keep going over racism with my neuroscience reading and my writing with my dissertation and trying to understand. Does anyone ever ask another person, like how I keep saying, have they ever said, have you ever figured out how to get rid of racism to someone else and said flat out, have you ever learned or figured out how to get rid of racism? I think it's important to try and not just end no more racism, no more abuse. But to figure out, how can we get rid of it? So there's not people in the middle of a city, or not people down the street, or not people next door, or not people down the hall, or not people in the landlord office trying to end it. And making people like me frustrated and less motivated for my skin color and my flags of patriotism and my finger and its behavior. Birds and animals are smart. They get stuff figured out. They don't end stuff. They're not vicious, they're not mean, they're not human. They don't think a million different ways about one problem when all they gotta do is get rid of the problem. But they don't go searching for the problem. They don't go pointing out and picking out and describing the problem a million, thousand, gazillion different ways. I think they understand how much time is involved in the process of all of the energy. And then another question would be, have you ever had a problem's solution. Well, people say, shut up. You're a bitch. To you. Because I think what the whole inquiry into racism right now has to do with is physiological. You got people who are taking away another person's mind and brain, controlling their body with their brain and their mind, and causing a person's body like mine right now to really stretch out and search for a safe, like you're in the dark, like you're blind almost, because the brain and the mind, they're controlled, they're under someone's power. And then people find other people who are having similar problems and difficulties, and they form communities. They even form micro worlds. And sadly, once in a while, they form, like here in Seattle, gangs. And they go out and they sell drugs to make money and have economics in the city with these conditions of methamphetamine and fentanyl and heroin and cocaine and crack. And you can get a cup of coffee. You're smart, your brain's working, your mind's tough and ready and prepared for danger if it occurs out there in the city like here in Seattle, where people have been shot and killed in front of McDonald's recently. 7 or 8 people shot and 1 killed, tragically. You can pour a cup of coffee. Traditionally, when you had your coffee poured, you had the slave get you that drink. Pour me that drink, slave. And then eventually, with manners and etiquette, I'd like some coffee, please. The homeowner says to their housekeeper, butler, or whoever is in charge of their services for food and water and coffee. You can make coffee. I can make coffee. Anyone can make coffee if they've got the money, the time, the equipment, and the energy. With your hands, you know, the artisan really gets excited about making. The artist creates beauty or a really good cup of coffee. But just because the person says they want a cup of coffee and say, please make me a cup of coffee, doesn't mean they're racist. necessarily, but it complicates stuff. Why can't people just get their coffee and make their coffee? Pour their coffee, or gosh darn heck, drink their coffee, you know? It's like, oh, drink the coffee. And it's like a big intersection with no light, but there's all these different directions where people are trying to go. And now there's almost always a person yelling. They know where everyone needs to go, and they want to tell the intersection the directions. But how does this get rid of this imbalance with the body, the brain, and the mind in less than 12 minutes? I don't know. But I'm willing to at least try for a second time for another 12 minutes. End part 1.